Hello and welcome back everyone to PKIdeas for another Tournament Reflections episode. This time we are going to be looking at the City of Adelaide Open 2017 round number 5. In this game I was white against Mr. Aaron Lee, or as I call him, Bonsai Boy. He was black. He's a really good mate of mine. We play every Thursday at the Adelaide University. Just to have fun, play some blitz and all this. But this time around we met in the competitive field, and the game is as follows. I went into the game extremely prepared, and the reason was that Aaron's theory is extremely good. Meaning that if you ask him a specific book line, he usually knows what it is. I played move number 1, d4, knight to f6, followed by knight to f3, g6, and then I played bishop to f4. Now in this position, basically Aaron was kind of expecting me to play the Collie system, but here I decided to revert into the London system, which I had been studying theory of, so that I could pull this surprise on him, because I hadn't played this against him yet. But as always, he knew his theory and he decided to play bishop to g7, where I followed by playing h3. The idea of h3 is to give the bishop an escape square on h2, because usually after the move e3, as the computer suggests, if h3 has not occurred, then knight to h5 is a good move for black, getting rid of the bishop pair. So after h3, what happened was c6. Now the idea of c6 is to bring the queen out to b6, and the idea of queen b6 is that now that the bishop is on f4, it's a waste of a move to come back to c1. So I have to play something like queen to c1. Now normally in this position, c3 is the move. However, I played opening mistake. I played e3. Now, I'll tell you why c3 is good. The reason why c3 is good is because queen b6, queen b3, queen takes b3, and a takes b3. And usually, if we chuck on the engine right here, right now, the game is better for white. So, instead of c3, I had played e3. Now, this allows him to play queen to b6. And at this moment in time, I lost the tempo playing queen to c1. Queen doesn't really belong on c1, not doing anything on c1. The queen's kind of blocked off from the king side by this pawn on c1, so the c1 square isn't necessarily a good square for the queen. Here, d6 was played. Now that's a pretty strange move. Usually what they play is either d5 or castles. This is a bit too quick, so normally d5 doesn't even happen, maybe just castles instead. So castles in this position would have been a better move according to theory, but here they say that d6 is also a good move. So let's play his d6, after which knight to b d2 was played. I just had to accept that this queen on c1 is going to be stuck on c1 for a very long time, as long as his queen is on b6. So after knight b to d2, he played bishop to f5, and this is followed by bishop to e2, h6, and then in this position I played castles. So this position is quite an interesting position. In terms of basic development, I've done everything. So I've brought my pawn to the center, I've developed my two pieces, at least two pieces. I've also developed, my other bishop and my knight. I've also castled my king, which means all of my development is complete. However, in terms of Aaron's position, he does not have a pawn on the center. His king is still in the center and hasn't castled, but he has developed two pieces. Minimum. So he's also got the bishop and he's also got the queen out. So after castles, g5. Now this position is not necessarily the correct position to start an attack. His king hasn't castled yet, which means it's still in the center, and his king side is going to get ruined if he keeps on pushing these pawns. After g5, bishop to h2, as always I had that escape square available as in the London system every single time, followed by g4, which suddenly, as the engine shows, it goes a +1 immediately. In this position it was 0.4, and he had worsened the position by 2 by playing g4. After g4 was played, I played knight to h4, followed by bishop to d7. Now the bishop's extremely useless on d7, simply because of the fact that he moved out the bishop to f5, which didn't do anything in the first place, and then moved it back to d7, which once again isn't doing anything in the first place there as well, in the second place. So bishop to e6 was a better move, and this is because the bishop is still attacking the queen side over here and still keeping an eye on this pawn over here. Now, instead of bishop to e6, we saw bishop d7 was played, followed by h takes g4 and knight takes g4. After knight takes g4, I decided to retain the double bishop and play bishop to g3. And he followed by playing rook g8. So he's really gunning for this g file over here, thinking that I'm going to suffer under the hands of his rook and pile driving his pieces. So in this position, I would like to stop for a second and then quickly evaluate the position. So here I have got 1, 2, 3, 4 defenders, and he has got 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers. So usually for an attack to work, you need to have 2 more attackers than defenders, and in this position he does not, which means that I wasn't necessarily scared of any attack that he had. Now knight to c4 was played, forcing his queen back, and he played queen to c7. After queen to c7, I played queen to d1 to attack this knight again, and then he played bishop to f6, putting pressure on my knight over here. After bishop to f6, queen to d3, bringing my queen into the action and connecting my rooks. He played b5, an interesting move, forcing my knight back. Realistically, if you look at this position, my knight does not want to go anywhere forward in the first place. And it can't, to be honest. So, my ideal square for the knight would be something like knight on f3 or knight on e4. So to get there, I would have to play d2 anyways. So the lesson to learn here is that if your opponent is going to play a move in the first place, or anyways, then don't force him to make that move anyways and worsen your position, as Aaron did here. So after queen to d3, b5. After b5, I played knight to d2, followed by him playing knight to a6. So now finally the development of the queen side is coming up. But once again, it's not really safe for him to castle over there because I've still got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces attacking over here, and I've easily got the pawn majority over there as well. So after knight to a6, I played c3, stopping his knight from coming to b4, as the computer had pointed out. Queen to b7 was played, which I'm not really sure why. I'm pretty sure he wanted to play c5, but he couldn't when the queen was on c7 because of the h2 to b8 diagonal, which is a really important diagonal in the London system. So after queen to b7, knight to e4, I brought my knight out, and then he played knight to c7. After knight to c7, I played f3. Now his position is lost. He has blundered his knight after knight to c7. You can see over here, it goes from 1.64 to 3.97. So once again, he's made 2 significant blunders, which has caused his position to go into ruin. So after f3, he had no choice but play knight takes e3. And I played queen takes e3, grabbing the knight. Now in this position, Aaron thought he could get away with the whole thing by winning the bishop over here and then winning the knight. But here I had an important tactic. Now if you want to, you can always stop the clock, stop the video, and try and figure out what this important tactic is. Well, the engine's already ruined it, but it's knight takes d6. And ideally, the move that he is supposed to play is something like either king to d8 or king to f8, trying to move the king out of the line of the e file. Now this is why open files are really important. See, I don't have a pawn on it, and he does, which means that the position is semi-open, and the file is semi-open, and I can develop pins and forks out of them and discovered attacks. So after queen takes e3, he played rook takes g3, and I had thought for a second, hold on, in this position, let's see if he has something else. So maybe something like after knight takes d6, I was thinking that if he played king takes f8 and I played knight takes queen, he would play bishop takes h4. But at that moment in time, over here where all the colors are going, after rook takes g3, I did not see the fact that you can do queen takes h6 after bishop takes h4, winning back the piece. So in this position over here, I was going to play knight takes d6, and then Aaron, after doing rook takes g3, had resigned. So that being said, quite a small game. It's quite a short game actually, and quite an interesting game. Simply because Black had come out in the opening, guns flaming and everything, and I just simply had to calculate, develop my position slowly, and then start an attack of my own. So basically, the thing to learn in this position is to don't start attacking unless you have completed development. So development includes pawn in the center, develop 2 pieces, and then cast your king. After you've done that, you can go guns blazing whenever you want, however you want. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please go down below, leave a like, and comment down below what you would like to see, and also any analysis that I had missed. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. With that all being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time.